He walked into the gala unnoticed. They spilled champagne on him as a joke. This is what happens when you disrespect the wrong person, especially the one you never saw coming. Before we continue, feel free to subscribe if you'd like to hear more stories that spark awareness, kindness, and real change. Thank you for being here. They spilled champagne on the man they thought was a nobody, but they didn't know he was the billionaire, secretly funding their entire company. The Crystal Monarch Hotel shimmered like a jewel that night. Its marble pillars glowing under soft, blue-light golden chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen fireworks, each one sparkling as if competing with the flash of cameras. A live orchestra played elegant notes that drifted through the ballroom, blending with the chatter of wealthy guests and rows of influencers posing for perfect photos. Every corner buzzed with conversations about money, deals, and the future of Vanguard Orion's reported $1.2 billion global partnership with a mysterious, unnamed investor. In the center of all this noise stood Marcus Levin. He didn't draw attention. He didn't try to. He wore a simple dark suit, neat, quiet, nothing flashy, and moved through the room with calm eyes and a steady posture. Most people brushed past him without a second glance, assuming he was just another guest, trying not to get in anyone's way. There was no spotlight on him, no recognition, no whispers of curiosity. He blended perfectly into the background, but even in a room filled with wealth, not everyone offered basic respect. Near the drinks table, Marcus found his path blocked by Brandon Creed, the company's CEO. Known for his booming laugh and love of attention, Brandon barely glanced at Marcus before making a loud joke, the kind meant to entertain the people standing around him. He assumed Marcus was staff, no question, no hesitation, and spoke as if Marcus didn't belong anywhere near the VIP section. A few people nearby laughed, eager to stay on Brandon's good side. Then Brandon picked up a glass of champagne. Maybe he thought it would get another laugh. Maybe he thought it was harmless. With a smirk, he tipped the glass forward, letting the champagne splash across Marcus's shirt as phones quietly lifted and recorded the moment. The crowd snickered, some whispering comments, others simply watching to see what Marcus would do. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't defend himself or snap back. He just paused, wiped his sleeve with steady movements, straightened his jacket, and stepped away from the crowd without a single word. There was no anger in his eyes, no panic, no embarrassment, just a quiet stillness that nobody noticed because they were too busy laughing. As the ballroom doors closed behind him, the people inside assumed the man had left in shame. He hadn't. Marcus wasn't retreating. He was making a decision, one that would change the entire night and everything that followed. When Marcus stepped into the long marble hallway, the noise of the gala faded behind him. The music, the laughter, the clinking glasses, all of it dissolved into silence. He reached into his pocket, not hurried, not shaken, and took out his phone. There was no frustration in his eyes, only a steady resolve. When the line connected, he spoke with the same calm voice he had used all night. Freeze everything. He didn't explain, he didn't repeat himself. The person on the other end answered instantly, "Yes, sir," and the call ended. Marcus kept walking, his footsteps soft against the polished floor, almost serene, like a man who had already accepted what would happen next. Back inside the ballroom, the change was immediate. The violins wavered and stopped mid-song. The giant LED screens that had been displaying the company's achievements suddenly glitched and blinked to black. Executives began checking their phones, expecting schedule updates or harmless alerts, but instead, they froze. One by one, expressions shifted from confusion to disbelief. Messages poured in, funding paused, contracts suspended. A ripple of panic moved through the crowd. Someone whispered, "Why'd everything stop?" Another voice near the front stammered, "Who issued the command?" And then, louder, sharper, like a slap across the room, "Who even has that authority?" People began looking at each other, searching for answers. The mood had shifted from celebration to unease. The video of the champagne incident spread through the crowd like wildfire. Guests huddled around phones, replaying the moment in slow motion, the spill, the laughter, the humiliation. But this time, they didn't laugh. They paid attention to the man they had ignored. Someone zoomed in, someone else whispered, "That's the guy, the quiet one." And then a server, carrying a nearly empty tray, leaned over to his coworker and muttered under his breath, "You fools." That man walked like he owned the place. The other server nodded slowly. Did that sentence moved through the ballroom faster than any news alert? The conversation stopped. Color drained from the executives' faces. Guests began connecting the dots. The disappearance of the investors' representatives, the sudden shutdown, the terrified expressions of the board members. And then the truth hit the room like a pish shockwave. Marcus Levin wasn't a staff member. He wasn't lost. He wasn't nobody. He was the anonymous investor, the one pouring billions into their expansion, the one everyone had spent months speculating about, the one they were instructed to treat with absolute respect. The man they had mocked, spilled champagne on, and publicly humiliated, was the man holding all the power in the building, and he had just walked out. By the next morning, the company was falling apart faster than anyone could control. What had been a night of celebration, only hours earlier had turned into a full-scale corporate disaster. Partnership officially collapsed. Every major investor who had been proudly shaking hands the night before was now pulling out, one after another. Terrified of being connected to the chaos, emails flooded in. Phones wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters camped outside the building, demanding statements, pushing for answers, asking how a billion-dollar deal could vanish overnight. Inside the headquarters, executives moved through the hallways. Like ghosts, some whispered to each other, some argued, some sat at their desks, staring blankly at their screens, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong, so quickly. But through all of it, Marcus said nothing. No press conference, no angry statements. He didn't post online. He didn't point fingers. He didn't try to punish anyone. He simply chose not to continue working with people who had made it clear they didn't respect him. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need to raise his voice. He let their own actions do the talking, and the humiliation they brought on themselves, that spread faster than any headline ever could. Employees whispered the story in hushed voices. Other companies heard about it through industry channels. People replayed the champagne video again and again, realizing just how badly the executives had misjudged the quiet man in the dark suit. The reality was simple and impossible for them to escape. Marcus didn't destroy their reputation. They did that all by themselves, and the world was watching. They showed up at Marcus's home early the next morning. The CEO, his wife, and Brandon all stood on his quiet doorstep, looking nothing like the powerful figures they had been the night before. The confidence was gone. Their voices were shaky. Even their expensive clothes suddenly looked small on them. Marcus opened the door calmly, as if he had been expecting nothing more than a peaceful morning. No anger, no bitterness, just steady patience in his eyes. They began talking all at once. Apologies, excuses, promises, desperate explanations. The CEO's wife's voice cracked as she said, "We didn't mean to. We didn't know who you were. Please give us another chance." Brandon couldn't even look Marcus in the eye. "Just tell us what we can do. Anything. We'll fix it." Marcus listened in silence, not interrupting, not rushing them. He simply let their own guilt fill the space between them. When they finally stopped talking, Marcus spoke softly, almost gently. "You didn't lose everything today," he said. "You lost it the moment you decided someone's value." Came from their clothes, and not from their character. The three of them stood frozen. There was no loud anger in his voice. No threats, no demands, just the truth. The kind of truth that sinks deep and stays. They asked the question they were terrified to hear the answer to. "Can anything be fixed?" Their voices trembled. Marcus shook his head slowly. "The deal is gone. The trust is gone. But the real loss isn't money." He paused, letting the words settle. "The real loss is character." The silence that followed was heavy, heavier than any headline they'd read that morning. Marcus stepped back slightly, giving them space. His tone stayed calm, respectful, even kind. "Walk carefully," he said. "The world is smaller than you think." Then, without drama or cruelty, he simply closed the door. No slamming, no final glare, just quiet finality. Inside, his life continued peacefully. His businesses strong, his reputation solid, his integrity untouched. Outside, the people who had mocked him stood in the still morning air, understanding the weight of their actions. Their company would become a lesson told in classrooms, whispered in meetings, shared as a warning about pride and shallow judgment. And Marcus, he returned to the life he had always lived, steady, humble, respected. Power didn't need to raise its voice. Respect didn't need a spotlight. And the person they looked down on yesterday had been holding their future all along.